channel. Today we'll be starting a new series of videos, and this is specifically around production incidents. This is an area which is very rarely covered by different teams, and but it is still critical. It's very hard to get insights into how companies actually handle production incidents. So today I'm going to try and introduce this to you, and then there'll be a whole series of videos that we will come up with to kind of walk you all through this process. So let's first of all try and define what is an incident. It's any event which disrupts or could disrupt a production service. It could be that some services are failing or they are in degraded states. Now, what's noted below is the different ways an incident can be reported to you, right? And number one is, of course, it's plain and simple. It's the users. Who are users? Users are people who might be coming to your website. Users might be people who are interacting with your product, uh, physically, online, doesn't matter, right? Uh, Anyone who is consuming a product that you have created or service or resell, right? You don't have to be the manufacturer or the producer or the website owner. You could just be a reseller, or, like say you're an Amazon reseller. And if there's a problem reported, then you now have an incident. So that's what, a user is. Reported or logged by IT staff. Now, who are the closest people to systems? It's usually your IT engineers, whether they are in the service desk, whether they are an analyst, whether they are a software developer, whether they are a QA developer, or whoever, right, within the IT organization. And they have access to critical information about the system in a way that a user will never have access to. So they can also report an incident. Again, the incident is just what we described above, something that is already disrupting or could disrupt. Say they notice some uh, code which might be having a potential for a hack, right? So they will report that and say, hey, this is a potential area where we could see a hack come through, and so it could lead to disruption in production service. So hey, let's fix that. So that's how it could be reported by an IT staff. The next area is if it's detected by some event management software. So there's a lot of tools out there. I'll just name one, for example, App Dynamics, and of course there's others, Foglight, etc. Right? There's so many tools out there today that will track, your logs and your processes, and based on certain thresholds or criteria that you will have defined. And again, all of this we'll probably go through in detail in some, future videos, right? But for today, we're just kind of introducing you. So today's just the first, uh, you know, like chapter, if you want to call it, on production incidents. So I'm not getting into details about these, but just wanted to introduce you to, hey, what possible areas are available from where an incident can be reported. Next is if it's reported or logged by a supplier. So, like I was telling you about Amazon, right? Hey, you're a reseller and you have a problem with Amazon. But what if Amazon itself reported to you, hey, by the way, I have a disruption going on, and this will impact anybody who comes to you as a reseller, and your products or services might not be available or accessible to users. So that is a very important source of information because it's usually a high level of truth to that incident because it's coming from a known supplier. Yet you have very limited control because they reported the incident and you're kind of dependent on them to resolve it and report back to you. So this kind of incident is probably the worst kind you want to be in a situation in because you have very limited control. One, in terms of getting information of when it started and how it will end. So, but yeah, it's something that you have to be aware of and track. And I'm giving you a little diagram here, describing you to this whole process, right? So how an incident is detected, reported, and then it goes through the life cycle. And again, we're not going to get into that life cycle yet, but just to show you there, that's the life cycle where there'll be an investigation, some mitigation, like, some workaround, etc., some resolution or fixes come, and then of course a postmortem where we identify what happened and then find an incident report. But we're not going to get into all of that today, but just again to kind of whet your appetite for what could be coming in terms of additional videos on production incidents. So with this, I want to kind of just touch upon the four critical pieces of an incident, right? Of why an incident can occur. One is latency. What is latency? It is where traffic is slower, like your response time, like some user is clicking on some button on a website, and that response is not almost instantaneously coming back, at least to the user. It's taking 5 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever, right? Or never coming back. So that's latency. Traffic, that can be a problem. Uh, it's a long weekend, not that kind of traffic. It's more like, hey, it's Christmas time, Thanksgiving time, millions of people trying to do shopping, your website is overwhelmed. That kind of traffic. If there is peak traffic going on, then that can impact your service. Errors, right? So you might be used to expecting some level of errors. There could be what we call business user errors that are like kind of expected errors. Like say somebody's typing in a city and they type in a error in the city name and system throws a message back in saying this is not a valid city, and that's expected, right? And that's fine. But what if you expect 5% of your times users to enter that wrong, and now suddenly it's 95% of the time. So that means something else is going on, and that should be looked at. Saturation, that's typically a sign that your systems are now starting to get overwhelmed, and it could be just plain and simple that you need to add more capacity. So it could be more around your hardware, how much your memory is being utilized, how much your CPU is being utilized. So that's more technical in terms of hardware sometimes. But again, it's a sign that something is potentially going to go wrong and you need to start looking at it. So, those are some things which can get reported as a production incident. So again, a little diagram on the right kind of showing you, you know, ways to detect. There's usage based, and then there is request error based. And there's different ways, and we'll get into those details in some future video again. So with that, I would like to thank you for joining today, getting an introduction on handling, reporting rather, production incidents. The next video I'm going to talk about is escalating production incidents to tier 2. So till then, thank you, and do subscribe to our channel.